always wanted to travel more, but I haven't had a lot of opportunities. Moving to Oregon was most traveling I'd done since I moved out of my parents' house. As a kid, my family traveled a lot, but always within the US. I've been to Toronto, but going to Canada when you live in Michigan hardly counts as international travel. I always wanted to travel abroad, and in October of 2024, I finally got my opportunity. On October 12th, I boarded a 10-hour flight from Seattle, Washington to Frankfurt, Germany. At least it was supposed to be 10 hours, but it took 11 because of wind or something. I don't know, but it meant that I landed with only half an hour to get onto my next flight from Frankfurt to Dusseldorf, which was stressful. I rudely ran past everyone else to get off the plane as soon as I could, made a mad dash through the airport only to get an email that they had rebooked my flight due to the delay, which was great. Except for how sweaty I was by the time the email came through. But 3 hours later, I was on a flight and shortly landed in Dusseldorf, Germany. Dusseldorf looked very pretty from the balcony of my hotel, but even more so once I got down into the city. Dusseldorf felt like a very modern city. There were many newer buildings and beautiful buildings. I'm a bit of an architecture nerd, so you're going to see a lot of buildings throughout this video. My hotel represented the more modern side of the city. The Zipper is a hotel that feels like they came up with the name first and the design second. Jests aside though, it was a very cozy place to stay. I had a nice comfortable bed, a little kitchen to eat in, and a decent shower, none of which I remembered to film. In any case, it was a great place to stay for a few days. I don't speak German beyond very basic sentences, so luckily I wasn't alone on my adventure. My lovely host translated and spoke to the locals for me as well as helping me get around, so luckily I didn't die. On my first day in Germany, we walked around Dusseldorf taking in the sights. It was very rainy, which might bother some people taking their first international vacation, but I'm weird and I like rain, so this was just fine by me. We walked around a lot as well as taking trams and buses to get around. Being from the US, the ease and comfort and cleanliness of the public transport was wonderful to experience. We do have public transport in the US, but it's mostly a car culture, and what public transport we do have is not very good. Comparatively, German cities are very walkable, and Dusseldorf was no exception. We spent most of the day walking around carrying various heavy things, which absolutely killed my shoulders. I made my host promise we wouldn't carry stuff all over the place for the rest of the visit. While walking around, we stopped off in a Lindt store just to get out of the rain for a bit. I wasn't intending to buy or film anything here, but I got very distracted by all of the truffles they had out. They had lots of flavors that I've never seen in the US before, such as blood orange, cinnamon swirl, champagne, and many more. We ended up buying a ton and eating them throughout the trip. But you don't care about that. You want to hear about all the traditional German food I tried. You want to know what I thought about things like sauerkraut, Königsberger Klopse, and Schweinshaxe. Well, here's the funny thing. Dusseldorf is a very multicultural city, and my host is a particular fan of Dusseldorf's Little Tokyo and Little Seoul regions, so for the first 2 or 3 days I was in Germany, I hardly ate anything German. I had sushi, taiyaki, red bean mochi, 2 different bowls of udon, all of which were very good. I had this great taiyaki with sweet potato ice cream from a small place. The local bees loved it so much that they chased me around while I was trying to eat. We also bought various snacks in Korean markets, but yeah, not a lot of German food in Germany. Not yet at least, but we'll get to it. After spending most of the day walking around sightseeing and eating wonderful Japanese food, we were treated to a wonderful sunset overlooking the Rhine before turning in for the night. The next morning, we took a cab to Dusseldorf's Nord Park where we walked around the Japanese garden. Now mind you, this was October and there wasn't really anything in bloom. Still, it was very pretty and a pleasant place to walk around. I got lucky with the weather during my visit. Certainly it was cold and rainy some days, but most of the time it was a very comfortable temperature. The fall colors were in full bloom during my visit, which was wonderful to see. While walking around, we stumbled upon the Dusseldorf Aquarium, or Aqua Zoo. Germans love to just take 2 different words and smash them together to make a new one. For example, the word for table is Tisch, and the word for writing is Schreiben, so what do they call a desk? Why, a Schreibtisch, of course. The word for chair is Stuhl, so take a guess. What's an office chair called? Schreibtischstuhl, obviously. In the Aqua Zoo, we saw lots of beautiful fish, a few gross ones. There were a good number of shrimp, though I couldn't find any that were frying rice. There were these guys from Elden Ring that they apparently made in real life, and even this thing that I probably have to blur for YouTube. After the Aqua Zoo, we walked back to the city center to meet with a couple of my host's friends, though we underestimated how far we had to walk. We were both hungry, not having eaten since breakfast, but it just felt like the walk kept going and going. Eventually, we had to stop at a small food stand and get my first taste of German cuisine. Bockwurst. You know, despite being just a random sausage from the first food stand we came across, this was legitimately the best sausage I've ever had. Maybe I'm biased because I was dying of hunger at the time, but it was seriously so good. And the best part? €3. In fact, everything was very reasonably priced in Germany. The inflation and price gouging in the US has gotten completely out of hand. I saw bottles of dish soap that cost a third of what I would have paid in the US, conversion rate considered. I bought a lovely leather jacket in Germany for $40 less than I would have paid in the US, and that includes sales tax. I wouldn't even pay sales tax in Oregon and I still would have overpaid. They've got affordable clothes and groceries while also having affordable education and universal health care. Anyway, I'm so happy to be back in the US with all the tariffs that half the voters didn't want and the other half didn't understand. I really am. Anyway, after meeting with my host's friends at a cafe, we walked around and ate more food before heading back to the hotel for the night. The next day, we checked out of our funny-looking hotel and headed for the train station. The train systems in Germany can be a bit unreliable, but they're otherwise quite comfortable and easy to use. We rode a train for a couple hours through Nordrhein-Westfalen before stopping in Munster, the city where my host lives and the city we spent the most time in. We took a taxi out into the outskirts of the city for one of many surprises my lovely host had for me. A stay in a German castle. This is Schloss Wilkenhege. Schloss meaning castle in German. Now I know it seems pretty small to be called a castle, but it is technically considered a castle by historical standards. My host arranged for us to stay on these picturesque grounds for a couple days. The main building is where the family would have lived while it was being used as a castle, while the building next door was for the servants. But now that it has been turned into a hotel, the servants' quarters have been converted into suites, and that's where we stayed. The room was pretty spacious and cozy with a very nice bathroom, but the bed? Here's the thing. It's apparently quite common for large beds in Germany to be made up of essentially two smaller mattresses just pushed together. I guess the logic is that couples can have different firmness mattresses depending on their preferences, but the byproduct is a wonderful little crack in the middle of the bed, which I took to calling the chasm to hell. This is a different hotel room where I filmed the chasm, and the problem is that over time, the mattresses would slowly separate and the chasm would grow, and it was just generally really uncomfortable to sleep on or around. I know I sound like a pretentious fuck complaining about my castle hotel room, but of all the hotels we stayed at throughout the trip, this one had the least comfortable bed and the chasm was not helping. Otherwise though, this was a wonderful place to stay. The room was comfortable, the grounds were beautiful and cozy. Our stay included breakfast and they had quite a nice spread. They had honey and apple jam that were made on site, both of which were phenomenal, and a great selection of teas. I had an orange cream rooibos tea that I still think about. After checking into the hotel, we headed into town. Munster is a much smaller town than Dusseldorf, but that's part of what I loved about it. The whole city is just so comfortable and beautiful. It ended up being my favorite city that I visited, which was good because it was also the town I spent the most time in. The city center is absolutely beautiful, dominated by gorgeous buildings surrounding wide walking areas. There's not one but two giant beautiful churches in the middle of town. Germans love to bike, and I mean they really love it. Where I live in Oregon, it's considered to be one of the most bikeable cities in the US, but we don't even compare to what Munster's got going on. I mean, just look at all these bikes. Oh, did you think that was a lot of bikes that I just showed you? Did you think, wow, that's a lot of bikes? Well, look at this. Now that's what I call a lot of bikes. And it doesn't end there. Look at this massive two-tiered bike rental location, which is situated next to a massive underground bike rental warehouse. It's just bikes, bikes, bikes as far as the eye can see. They never end. Once again, the thing that really stuck out to me was just how easy it was to get around. I'm sorry, I know the car guys are just fuming right now, but the city was so walkable and the public transport was so accessible. The buses run on a trust system, so you don't even need to show your ticket when you get on. You can just get on and sit down. It makes it so easy and relaxing. My host's student bus ticket allowed her to bring a +1 on the bus during certain hours, so there were a lot of times that we didn't have to worry about getting a ticket or talking to the driver or anything. We just sat down, and it was so convenient. We stopped to eat at a lovely Italian restaurant just so I could add more non-German food to my food list. As an entree, I had a fig filled with mozzarella, wrapped in pancetta and drizzled with saffron honey, and oh my god, it was simply phenomenal. The sweetness of the honey and the fig paired beautifully with the savory and salty flavor of the pancetta and mozzarella to create just a magnificent experience. For the main dish, I had pacchidi filetto, which was cooked to perfection, followed by a lava cake and panna cotta for dessert. The panna cotta was just excellent. I never had panna cotta before this, but consider me a fan. The following day, we spent a lot of time relaxing in the hotel room, which was nice after a good few days of activity. Plus, I needed some time to tend to my hair. You may have noticed how much of a goddamn mess it was in these shots. You can't wash hair like mine too frequently because it gets really dried out and damaged, so I don't wash my hair every day. I wash it once a week. The rest of the week, I keep my hair up and out of the water when I shower, but my hair doesn't usually look this bad after just a week. I blame the long flights and the rain for how messy it got. In any case, washing my hair is a rather involved process that takes a couple hours, and I was glad to have the time to do it. Here I am after tending to it, and you can see the world of a difference it makes. So we spent most of the day at the hotel, but we went out for dinner at a very fancy German restaurant so I could finally try some traditional German food. I ate Rheinischer Sauerbraten mit Rotkohl und Kartoffelklößen, a traditional German dish, and it was really nice. The beef was cooked to perfection and the sauce was flavorful and filling. The potatoes were soft and buttery. My host insisted that I try red sauerkraut. I've had sauerkraut before, but I haven't liked it much. Still, this stuff was pretty good. I wouldn't go out of my way to eat it, but I'd eat it if it was put in front of me. Dessert was just a sugar overload. I got an apple strudel with vanilla ice cream. I've had a few strudel in my day, but this was definitely the best one. I was so full from dinner that I couldn't finish it, but it really was fantastic. My host got a creme brulee that was masterfully caramelized. It was like eating little bits of glass made of sugar, except it wouldn't cut you. Well, maybe it could if you tried hard enough. Funny story, at the end of our meal, my host went to the bathroom while I stayed at the table. The waiter came by and started clearing the plates, and he started speaking to me in German. I told him, Ich spreche kein Deutsch, meaning I don't speak German, and he replied in an Italian-English accent, German is a waste of time, stick to English. So take that, German speakers! Deine Sprache ist albern und schwer. Who tells time like that? I'm just kidding, by the way, don't get too mad in the comments. The following morning, it was time to check out of the castle. Luckily, we were able to abuse the staff's kindness and get them to watch our bags for a few hours before we could check into the next hotel, which was also in Münster, while we spent some time running around the city center. Once again, Münster is simply a beautiful city. While walking around for a bit, we stopped at a lovely cafe serving tea and macarons, and just look at this. Looks like a picture you'd see on a lifestyle Instagram or something, just beautiful. I had jasmine tea and rooibos strawberry tea, both of which were very nice, and a couple of delicious macarons. We then checked into our next hotel, a small apartment nearby the train station, which I neglected to get any footage of. This was one of my favorite hotels we stayed at. Not really for the room itself, though. The room was fine, it was okay. The bathroom was really small, and there wasn't a ton of room to put toiletries. It seemed to trap in heat, so even though it was a cool fall temperature outside, it was like 80 degrees inside the room, and the only openable window was actually a door leading to the courtyard, so we didn't feel comfortable leaving it open for anyone to walk in. And, you know, Germans don't believe in AC for some godforsaken reason, so we didn't really have much of a choice. The only reason I've been given for this is because ACs make you sick, which is just total bullshit. I run my AC non-stop throughout the summer and I never get sick. And they're more energy efficient than heating, so don't tell me it's for the environment. If you use heat, you have no excuse. Anyway, the reason I liked this hotel so much was just the location. Being right next to the train station put us in the heart of the city, so it was super easy to get around. Plus, there was a grocery store like 50 feet away from the hotel entrance, so it was super easy to pick stuff up. The convenience of it made the room really comfortable ultimately. After getting settled in the hotel, we went back into the city and got döner for dinner. Döner is a Turkish dish which was brought to Germany by Turkish immigrants, where they created a unique German style for the dish. It's rotisserie meat served in a pita bread pocket stacked high with veggies and topped with either hot sauce or garlic sauce. The portions are huge. It's a monster of a food and it is fantastic. The place we went to baked their pita in-house and I got it with the garlic sauce. I thought for sure I wouldn't be able to finish all of it, but it was so good that I just kept eating. Our stomachs filled, we then took a walk around the lake in the center of Munster. It's a beautiful man-made lake which was built by the Nazis, which was cool of them to do. I'm surprised they found time to do it with all of their other activities. Look, we just gotta separate who made it out of the equation. It's a nice lake, okay? Here I got to see a lot of beautiful fall colors as the sun slowly dipped below the horizon. There were a ton of people walking around here this time of year. These Germans like getting out, man, I tell ya. The temperature was perfect, the colors were beautiful, it was a lovely evening to take a stroll. As it got darker, we headed back into the city center for a bit before retiring to our toasty hotel for the night. The next day, we headed to the train station, which, as I mentioned, was very close to the hotel. It was a cool, comfortable morning to wait for a train. There's a certain feeling to being in a German train station that I enjoy. Now, I want to reiterate that German trains are very comfortable and easy to ride, but this ride was an exception. We were riding a train with 2 floors, so we took our seats on the upper floor. Then from the bottom floor, we started hearing loud music blaring from a speaker and an unnecessary amount of cheering. It turned out that a group of women decided that a fucking train was the best place to have a goddamn bachelorette's party, and they decided to make it everybody else's problem. They blared loud music and ran around the train drinking and handing out shots. It was so annoying. Listen, as far as I'm concerned, all public transport should operate on airplane rules. Be quiet, stay quiet, don't disturb the other passengers, or get thrown off. Unfortunately, German trains are much more lenient than that, so we just had to deal with it until they finally got off. And don't give me any of that, oh, they were just having fun, leave them alone, bullshit. If they're having fun at the expense of others, then it's just plain rude. We took a train ride south to Bonn, which is the city where Beethoven lived. All throughout the city, various businesses had these creepy little mini Beethoven golden statues, which just kind of reminded me of mini Dallas.
Aye.
Bonn is also where Haribo was founded, and we took some time looking around a Haribo store, which was stocked full of all kinds of Haribo gummies I'd never seen before. But I didn't buy much. Partly because I didn't want to carry it around all day, and mostly because I didn't have much room in my luggage for it. Bonn is an absolutely beautiful city, just extremely picturesque, especially in the rain. There were a bunch of vendors out for a market and we got some extraordinary bread from one of the carts. It was unbelievably soft and fluffy. After walking around some more, we got lunch at a traditional German restaurant. I ate Schupfnudeln mit Bratwurst and sauerkraut. The Bratwurst and Schupfnudeln were very good, but the sauerkraut was really not. It was tolerable when eaten with the Bratwurst or Schupfnudel, but eaten by itself it made me gag and I couldn't finish it. Yeah, get upset at me in the comments for not liking some types of food. I can't help it when my body physically repels your gross fermented cabbage. Before long, we walked to today's main activity, a 4-hour-long boat tour of the Rhine River. We enjoyed tea and cake while floating down the river and taking in the sights. Throughout the ride, the boat would occasionally stop and pick up or drop off passengers, and at one stop, a family with what must have been a dozen children boarded the ship and raised hell. I swear, I tripped on one of the little mongrels at one point. Still, that couldn't ruin such a beautiful ride. The boat ride came to an end as the sun began to set, and as another lovely day in Germany came to an end, I had to face an unfortunate reality. I was sick. I think I have a very strong immune system, generally. I've gone entire years without getting sick a single time, but when I do get sick, it's always at the worst possible time. In the last 4 years, I can recount all of the times that I got sick. Twice I got sick during the first week of a new job. Once I got sick when a friend came to visit me from overseas, and once I got sick during my first trip to Germany. That's it. That's every time I've gotten sick in the last 4 years. What luck I have! While on the boat, I started to feel really hot, which I assumed at first was just the temperature inside the boat. But once I started getting all stuffed up, it dawned on me what was happening. I bet it was one of those little ankle biters. Even if it doesn't make sense for them to infect me that quickly, I'm still gonna blame the unsanitary little monsters. So the following day, we mostly just rested. I ended up sleeping for a pretty good chunk of the day trying to speedrun recovering. In the evening, we went to a variety show put on by GOP Variety Theater, which I wasn't allowed to film. Still, we managed to get some sneaky shots of the show. It was a fun night full of dancing and music. The performers were really incredible. Before heading back to the hotel, we got a late night dinner of pide, a Turkish flatbread dish, which was really tasty. The resting continued into the next day since we didn't have anything planned for that day. We just stayed in the hotel room while I tried not to feel awful. You know, fun fact about Germany. For starters, they get 4 weeks of paid vacation a year at a base level required by law. I've never worked a job that gave me more than 2 weeks to start. On top of that, if you get sick while you're on paid vacation, you can get your vacation hours converted into sick time so you don't lose your vacation to illness. Isn't that lovely? I'm so happy to be back in the US with all of our wonderful labor laws protecting our work-life balance. I probably shouldn't complain given that I have it better at my job than a lot of people do, but I would still advocate for improvements that will never happen given our current trajectory. In the evening, we got ramen before heading back and resting some more. I was feeling better by the next day, though not back up to 100%. I continued to carry tissues around with me for the rest of the trip, but I was well enough to function and go out and experience everything Germany had to offer. We checked out of our stuffy hotel room and headed to the train station. We headed to Bonn once again, but a different part of Bonn. Where before we'd been in the city center, this time we went a bit farther south down the river to our next hotel, the Rhine Hotel Dresden. A lovely hotel situated along the Rhine River, of which we had a spectacular view from our room with the accursed chasm to hell. The room was great, nice, spacious bathroom, the bed was comfy excluding the chasm, and we had a decent balcony to enjoy the view. The hotel was in a very upscale area, which was absolutely beautiful, filled with interesting buildings on narrow little streets. For dinner, we got pizza. I had picante pizza, and it was phenomenal. What wasn't so phenomenal, however, was paying €8 for water. Listen, you can criticize America all you want, and they are valid criticisms, but at least we have free water at restaurants. Going out with friends but don't want to spend too much? Get a water, save some money. It's free and unlimited. Not so in fucking Europe. All those vacation days have to come from somewhere. I guess they make their money in water sales. I kept trying to save money by getting water only to realize that I was barely saving any money. And you might be thinking, oh, that's sparkling water, and you're damn right it is. If I'm going to have to pay for water, then I may as well pay a little extra for sparkling. It barely makes a difference, believe it or not. All these German restaurateurs get fancy water in glass bottles and they'll charge you €4 for it. Buddy, just run it under the tap. You think I'm afraid of pipe contamination? Motherfucker, I grew up in Michigan. Anyway, after my heart nearly gave out once I learned how much I was spending on water, we took a lovely walk around the neighborhood before turning in for the night. We ate breakfast in the hotel kitchen, and it was alright. Of the 5 hotels I stayed at, only Schloss Wilkenhege and the Rhine Hotel had breakfast available, and Wilkenhege had a better spread. Still, this breakfast was alright. I ate strawberry and raspberry jam spread in rolls, some breakfast cake, and red orange tea. I'm not much of a breakfast eater if you're wondering why my breakfasts tend to be a bit sparse. Something small is usually plenty for me. After breakfast, we took a ferry across the Rhine, then took a bus up into this small area on the outskirts of Bonn, which was just beautiful. We slowly made our way up into the hills. I had no idea where we were headed since this was a surprise for me. We eventually got in line to get tickets for a tram that ran up into the mountains, and I finally got to see what we were doing today. Schloss Drachenburg, a proper German castle, was built in the late 1800s by a remarkably successful stock trader who never actually lived in the building. Ownership changed hands a lot, and the building was used in quite an array of ways. First, it was a tourist destination and a kind of community center, then planned to be used as festival grounds, a Christian boarding school, an art gallery, and finally, a Nazi military school. During World War II, it was bombarded, destroying its iconic stained glass windows. After the war, it was briefly a training center for a rail company, and then it went abandoned for a few years and was left to degrade. In the late 80s, it was classified as a historical site and the building was restored to its former glory, including the installment of new and truly beautiful stained glass windows. And that leads us to today, where it now stands as a monument and tourist attraction. Being a bit of an architecture nerd, this was a real treat for me. The building was absolutely beautiful, and they allowed us to explore a shockingly large amount of the interior, which was filled with beautiful furniture and antique items. I was an especially large fan of all the grandfather clocks scattered around the castle. Bitches love a good clock. If you can convince your legs to climb the ridiculously long staircase, there's a beautiful view of the Rhine and of Bonn from the top of one of the towers, which I really love to look out from. My host, on the other hand, discovered a fear of heights she'd never known before, so she wasn't such a fan. We walked around the castle for a good few hours, taking in the sights, leaving no part of the castle unseen. I spent some time filming a fat-ass bee before finally taking the tram back down the mountain, took the ferry across the Rhine, and returned to the hotel. We ate dinner in the hotel restaurant. I got pork chops set in a blueberry compote, which was just excellent. The pork was very lightly seasoned, so I could really take in the flavor of the meat, and the compote, which was also subtly flavorful, had a pleasant blueberry flavor that didn't overwhelm the pork. Tired from castle spelunking all day, we turned in for the evening. As I said before, Bonn is the home of Haribo, and before leaving the city, we stopped by this massive Haribo outlet store with all of our luggage in tow. It was wall-to-wall Haribo, and this time, I couldn't resist the urge to pick up some varieties I hadn't tried before. We then took a train back to Munster and headed out into the outskirts of the city for the final hotel. We stayed in a farm building converted into suites nestled in a really beautiful neighborhood surrounded by cozy German homes and nature. This was my favorite place that we stayed. It was spacious and comfortable, set in a beautiful area. It was super quiet. There was maybe one other person staying there. I just felt very relaxed and cozy here. We did have to walk a good distance to the nearest bus stop, but hey, that's okay. After settling in, we headed into the city and ate doona again because I really wanted more doona, before walking around the city for a bit. I saw this statue, which looks like it was designed by Godric the Grafted, and we headed back to the hotel after getting some groceries for our stay. The next day, we mostly just rested. My host planned for us to go to a jazz show, but it got canceled, and I was still not back to full health, so it was good to just take it easy. I spent some time walking around the grounds filming all of the thick black cocks I could find and the random cow statue. For dinner, we used some of the groceries we bought the previous day. I made pan-fried chicken and bell peppers while my host threw together some butterkartoffeln, and it was all very simple and tasty. Finally, it was time for my last day in Germany. We headed into town and ran into this band that was just out performing. After listening in for a bit, my host took me to this lovely cafe on the 12th floor of a building in the middle of the city. We enjoyed tea and coffee and cake while overlooking the stunning view of the city. From the cafe, we made our way to the farmer's market, which was really overwhelming. There were so many vendors and people milling about. We picked up some local honey, and I bought a 4-strength 4-stam leather belt because the belt I brought to Germany was on its last legs, so it was a good opportunity to replace it with something quality. We also ate this delicious fried fish. I'm not much of a fish guy, but my god, this was fantastic. The farmer's market was held outside of one of the city's 2 insane Gothic churches, St. Paul's Dome. Built during the mid-13th century, the church contains the tomb of the former Bishop of Munster, Clemens August Graf von Galen. He's notable because he delivered speeches in opposition of the Nazi Party during World War II, so kinda based. The cathedral was, as is often the case, damaged by bombings, but has since been restored. The inside of the church is insane. There are so many statues and paintings and art installations. It's truly a marvel to walk through. After walking around the farmer's market a bit longer, we headed to a proper German pub where I finally got a genuine German pretzel. It was as good as it looks. We walked around the city for a bit, then rested in the hotel for a couple hours before my final surprise activity. Once the sun had gone down, we headed back into the city and went to the city fair, which happened to be in town while I was there. We spent the evening playing games and going on rides. We took a spin on this pleasant swing ride, which quote-unquote almost killed my host. It took her a good few minutes to recover from swinging in a circle a few times. Skill issue. We also went a few times around the Ferris wheel and ran through 2 different spook houses. One of them was a total scam and wasn't scary at all, while the other one had some genuine spooks in store for us. We ate cotton candy and crepes, and I got to try a genuine German bratwurst. It was okay. I'm just not a fan of bratwurst. It was a lovely way to spend my last day in Germany. The following morning we headed for the airport. It was a very stressful journey as our train to Dusseldorf got delayed. I shared an emotional farewell with my lovely host before my plane to Frankfurt lifted off 20 minutes late for some reason. That left me mad dashing through the Frankfurt airport to catch my plane back to the US, only for that plane to also lift off late, this time by a whole hour. But it all worked out and I made it safely back home to the US and to my cat, Luna, who was very excited to see me back home. I had a truly wonderful time in Germany. The people were friendly, the cities were beautiful, and everything was so cozy and safe. I felt really comfortable in Germany, like I had nothing to worry about. Maybe that's due to the culture in the cities I visited or just due to my wonderful hosts and how easy they made things for me, but I felt good during my time. I liked going to the store, taking the train, and just walking the beautiful streets. I ate delicious and affordable food, I drank lots of Fanta, and I spent way too much money on water. Wasser ist zu teuer in Deutschland. Germany is a wonderful country, and I'm lucky I got to go somewhere so great for my first international vacation. I walked away a bigger fan of Germany than I was expecting. Thank you to my lovely host for all that you did to make my first visit comfortable and fun. Thank you for planning so many surprises that you knew I would enjoy, and thank you for showing me so many of the things that you love. I'm really lucky that I had such a wonderful travel partner. We're sucking dick.
Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed the video. I really appreciate the opportunity to share my travel experience. Travel vlogs aren't something I get to do often, but I really enjoy it when I do get to share that aspect of my life. If you're interested, I do have another travel video on the channel. It's about my road trip from Michigan to Oregon when I moved. I know it's been a good few months since I last uploaded. I appreciate the patience when it comes to new videos, and I just, I want to let you know I wasn't working on this video for the last 7 months. Basically, to give you an idea of the timeline here, I started working on a really huge, really important video probably sometime in like November of 2023. I worked on that for a good few months, doing a ton of research, doing a ton of writing until probably April of 2024, when I started to feel kind of directionless and not really sure what I wanted to do with it. So I pivoted and I worked on a video about Starfield instead. Cut a few months later, worked on Starfield and .NET videos. We're in November of last year at this point. I, revisited this giant video that I'd started the previous year, rewrote it, did a bunch more research, did a bunch more stuff for it, and I've been working on that ever since. It is a video that the scope of it kind of grew out of control. The script is over 100 pages long. The video is going to be split into 3 parts, but the total video length is about 5.5 hours long. I am deep into editing it at this point. I'm making very good progress on it, but I need a couple more months to get it finished before part 1 can come out. And I appreciate the patience. I really think you're going to enjoy it. It's a really special video that I put a ton of work into. It just takes a lot of work. If you want to find out more about that video and kind of see what that work is looking like, the Patreon is just $5 a month. I do all kinds of behind the scenes stuff on there. You also get weekly updates where I show off whatever I've been working on. Early access to the video when it does come out. This video came out a week early for Patreon subscribers. Behind the scenes live streams every month. I do written reviews, and very rarely I'll do some form of exclusive Patreon video. And I want to give a massive thanks to all of my Patreon subscribers who do a lot to support the channel and what I do here. I want to give a special shout out to my gamers, Grant Harsh, Lucy Ragier, Rays, and Salty Mint, and all of my simps, A Yellow Line, Marzak the Mad, Belgara, Bill Nye the Bounty Guy, Bork Laser, Ko Rosinante, David D, Degenerate, Matsugen, Aiki Diki, Jimmy B, Ramu Nerd, Ryan Hotsford, Sammy, Skippy, and the unmatched Power of the Sun. Once again, that's just $5 a month, and it's the best way to support the channel, and I really, really do appreciate it, especially over these long months that I'm working on these ridiculously huge videos. I promise I'm going to try to be better about that, but this one time, I'm sticking to my guns. It's worth it, okay? It's worth it for the wait this time. I really think so. So I appreciate you. I'll see you in a couple months when that's all done, or maybe I'll see you next week on the Patreon with an update about it. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it as always. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.